in the part 2, I think it will be good to consider the situation with the destructive war in our world, in our society, through the idea of free enemies, and look at Ukraine, look at Russia, and look at West. And out of this vision, begin to start our search for the solution. We cannot afford wars, our society, because now we have strong technologies, and they can really destroy the whole world. And also we cannot go by the way of lies. Many people are still very phony and like liars, not talking directly, not living directly, not communicating directly with each other, doing it in indirect ways. We are used to be artificial somehow and liars through the social media, maybe through the way our society has been going in the 20th century, in the 21st century especially. And lie is what is creating the problem. And we should learn how to be true to ourselves and to other people, and truly meet any situation with the health problems of the world, with the governments, with the ideologies, with the possibility to fall in the fascism again, and Stalinism, or any kind of dictatorship. Any kind. Because the dictatorship with the idea of democracy is also a dictatorship, or dictatorship with the idea of saving the world, like the Russia is now making, is completely a worst possibility for all of us. So we should overcome the dictatorship of any kind, because it is a way to live in fear. And the fear is not a good way of living. We were seeing that it is our all outer enemy, because if we live fearfully, cowardly, we are not opening the possibilities of the human life. And also, if we have trouble in emotions, we are not opening our inner world completely, and not realizing ourselves, not self-actualizing. And also, if we have the essential enemy, the deepest enemy inside of us, and we are fearful to look at it, it means the enemy of lack of understanding. If we do not understand our true nature, and the true nature of human being is goodness, and we have a false idea that we are bad deep inside, and out of this false idea we become a victim to the essential enemy of lack of understanding of ourselves and our nature and the nature itself. And so we are living not really a natural way, and this is why we are so disturbed and so unhealthy, psychologically especially. And we can be very intellectually and technically good, but if we are like a human beings don't know our essential nature, we will be creating so much of unnecessary problems for ourselves and for the whole world, because the technology is just magnifying everything that we are. And so it is good to be true to ourselves, to our nature, and go by the way of truth. and begin to speak to each other more truth and do it in direct manner. Be more direct, more brave, and we will see more out of this, and we will be able to live more out of this and be much more healthy than we are now as a human society. So if we look at the Ukraine first, the outer enemy, we can see that it is a Russian government, and especially the criminal minded type of government, which is now the mostly all the Russian government. So we don't have a real government, we have a thieves and the criminal minded type of people which suppress the whole Russia and which go by the way of threatening the world to get something out of the world. So we have like a criminal type of action and mind coming from the Russian government, and also we have the army, which is army of not the warriors, but of really of the worst type of sadists, because this army is, when they came to Ukraine, they were not just fighting, they were avoiding a direct fight with Ukrainian army. And when they took some villages and the cities, they were raping children, women, and cruelly killing. And so this army is one of the worst type, and it is like overall enemy for the whole humankind, because Ukraine is really fighting for the human values, fighting for ourselves. We are fighting just for human values, not just Western values or any Eastern values, just real, true, basic human values. Because Ukrainian people, we just appreciate life, and we respect life, and we love life, and we not even thinking that it is possible to destroy life and go by the war to any country. And we are not weak, we are strong warriors, and so we are fighting the Russian army because of love to life and our families, and we are protecting our land and protecting the values of any human being. In Russian army and the Russian government, we have some kind of, I think, hypnosis and the sickness, sick minds, sick people doing sick things. So it's like a health and healthy country, and unhealthy country trying to overcome a healthy country and healthy people. Because really many people in Russia, they live unhealthy life, because they not love each other, and they destroy each other the same way they are doing it in Ukraine and to Ukrainians. So they are not good to each other. They don't know their own essential nature, and they just don't really want to do anything to understand it, because they have a fear and like a lazy mind for it, and they are like happy to be ignorant, and happy to be so poor that they are going to the war, many people, because of money. And what a terrible way to make money and think about life, that it is the only way to make money. So it is a matter of sickness, and the matter of poverty, and the matter of criminal minded and like manipulative government who is using all of this. So this is the outer enemy. The inner enemy for Ukraine, I think it is the people who are doing the corruption in the country. And I can also say it is some financial systems like banking. It should be all clarified and fixed. And there should be no corruption if we want to win this fight, because you cannot win outer fight if you're not dealing with your inner problems, inner enemy, which is making you weak. So the weakness which we should all consider in Ukraine is like people who doing corruption and trying to like steal something from the country, from Ukrainians, the Ukrainians themselves, because it is the matter of inner, like inner enemy. And the essential enemy would be too much overflowing emotions. Too much. It is good to be emotional, but emotions can blind us and make us weak, because when we are blind with the emotions, we don't see the inner enemies, and we are not dealing in the very like concentrated way with the outer enemies. So emotions should be managed for the Ukrainians. If we manage our emotions, our like a big emotional type of like society, we will be able to see the inner enemies, the corruption. We will stop it completely, and we will begin to develop a very strong outer immunity to the Russian aggression, and completely win in this battle. Russia, there is no outer enemy, but the Russian government is saying that it is a West, it is NATO, now it is Ukraine. And by the time it was like many different countries, like Chechnya, they were saying there are terrorists there. In Georgia, in Ukraine, they were saying that they're using always some lies to try to invade the country. So there is no outer enemy, but the Russian propaganda is saying that there is for the Russian people. And there many people believe in it. But in reality, it is not so. The enemy of Russia is the Russia itself. And to be clear, it is the government, criminal-minded and corrupted, corrupted like sinful. Because in Ukraine we have corruption, but we don't have the sinfulness. People want to live and nourish and support life. In Russia, we have different problem because the criminal type people, they want the distraction, and they cannot be constructive. So for Russia, the outer enemy is the Russia itself. So Russia should overcome itself. Inner enemy is like a rape type of relationship. So it is not the corruption, because in the Russia they don't have corruption, because all the criminals, they become like a part of law. So they just use the whole country as an resource, and they not stealing, they just took all of the resources and all of the money and all of the power of the people to themselves. So there is no corruptions in the usual way. It's um, another level of corruption. What is the Russia doing? But inner problem is that people are really, and the word is strong, but it is so, raping each other physically and emotionally. And the police is the raping usual people, and usual people they have this rape type idea in their mind, and so this is why when they came to Ukraine and they were feeling that they are in power, the first thing they were doing just rape and violence. And it is not about sexuality, it is about the violence, because any person who has a sexual potential, she or he will never rape anything. It means that these people who want to rape, they are dying. They are sinful and corrupt already from inside. And they don't know how to love, so they just rape. And this is a very big problem in Russia. And the essential problem is slavery. Not imposed, but the slavery which comes from inside. Like a willing to be a slave, a willing to be just poor, willing to be a small person, a willing to be like raped by your people of your own country and by the government. And then if you become this slave, becomes like a police or a soldier, he begins to rape his maybe friends in some or another way. So it is a real situation with Russia. So it is, they should overcome the slavery and the fear of slavery and the attachment to be a slave. So to be a slave, it means not to have a responsibility. And they should not refuse of taking responsibility and just close the eyes to the responsibility. So for the Russia to become a healthy country, they need to take a responsibility from, like in essence, the people deep, like the whole society, people, majority should one day take the responsibility, overcome any violence and rape, and overcome the criminal minded government, and win the Russia again for themselves and for the world, because we need all the countries in the world, and we need Ukraine and Russia and the West and the East. We need all the countries in the Africa, we need Australia, we need North Pole, South Pole, because it is the wholeness and the beauty of our world. So now we'll be talking about the West. In the West, the outer enemy would be the justified, criminal-minded government of Russia, which the West was supporting with money and was working together. So the Russian government and the Russian problem and Russian-Ukrainian problem and the problem of this world is also a problem of the West, because West was very closely like having relationships with the Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, and really made him this monster he is now. So took part in making this monster which we all made. Ukrainians by the emotions, Russian people by the slavery and fear, and Western people by doing business together. So the enemy would be this outer, and also the idea of like double standards, or for me it's like an immoral business. You cannot make business with criminals. Out of this, everything will go not the way it needed to go. So it should be considered if we are talking about the West. In the West, we should overcome the idea of making money by closing our eyes on the morality or on the moral aspect of the business or the subject. So we should not make money with closing our eyes that this money could feed war or criminal people. But also the enemy is same as for Russia, for Ukraine, and for the West. It is now a Russian government, because they threaten the life of everything. So we should deal with that, but not with fear, as Jordan Peterson in his video I was making the comments was suggesting, like why I made video, because in all his speeches, in his books, he's saying to stand up and to be true, and in this video he was going away of coward, intellectual coward, and making so many making so many false moves, like intellectual sins, for me, from my perspective of view. So this is why I responded, and I started to think what it is really when the scholars they begin to stand on the side of tyrants, not like completely, but out of misunderstanding and out of lack of real courage. Courage helps us to go the way of health. We cannot be really a healthy society without courage. And so in the most historical and stressful moments, we should be courageous, not just talk about it. So this situation really shows, the big situation really shows the small things about everyone. And inner enemy of the West would be, because West is like an intelligence, Russia is like a body, Ukraine is like a heart. They all should work together in a normal way. And intellect and the body, they should not just like work together and not consider the heart, because if we are like fighting the heart and heart stops, there will be no intellect and no body. So we need heart, we need body, we need intellect, we need Russia, we need Ukraine, we need West in a harmonious, balanced, and a healthy relationships. And also the West is rules. The inner enemy is too much of rules which are not true to life, which are weakening the human potential, which are good for technologies, but which are not good for the human beings. So it is the problem of the West, inner problem. Like rules which are weakening the expression of human potential and human life and human energy, life force, the vitality, the creativity. So we should not bet only on technologies, we should bet on the human beings who manage the technologies and create technologies. Create and manage it in an intelligent way with understanding. And so out of this inner enemy comes the essential enemy, and it is a depression. It is a depression. So many people in the West are really depressed. What means depression? It is a depression of life force in human beings. And when our life energy is depressed by the rules, which should be overlooked, and the rules should support life and not suppress it, like in many slightest ways, but really suppress it. And it means that many people will be depressed, and depression will lead to like a hedonistic and lazy way of living. The hedonism of the West is coming out of depression and not out of enjoyment of life, because to enjoy life we need to be fully alive from inside. And the best enjoyment is a feeling of fresh, lively energy in you. It's like ability to be spontaneous, loving, and also to be like respecting the rules of human societies, but it should be in balance. And so if this balance is lost, we will have depressed human beings, depressed health. West has problems now with the like usual health, the health systems, and people cannot get why they are not getting this spark of health and not feeling strong and immune to any like problems like the virus